insincere and had intended to hurt him. So you see here, Tom worked very hard to get that bad reputation, not caring, not having true care, concern for himself, someone else, or the environment, or consideration. And he would do whatever he wanted to do, not caring how it affected everyone else. And then when something took place that he really felt bad about, well, somebody wasn't very forgiving in that. So remember, we're supposed to answer these as a class, and as a teacher who's directing a class, you really want to allow the students the opportunity to answer these questions and to engage each other a little bit, because a lot of these things that you're seeing take place in society and in school, they're going to relate to really closely. The one thing as a teacher in a classroom full of students you want to make sure they're talking about Tom and Harry, not start pointing at somebody in the classroom, that's just like him, or that's just like her, or that's just like this. You want to make sure they keep it to this scenario. And the only reason I bring that up, we've seen that a lot in school. They'll immediately start replacing names with other people. And you don't want to start a war in the classroom. You want to bring up a situation, and if it relates to other situations that's taking place in their school, which they're going to, not every situation they can relate to, but the majority of them. Bullying, people pushing people, knocking books out of their hand, that's always going, seems like, through every school. But here in the scenario questions, number one, what kind of behavior had earned Tom the reputation of being a troublemaker? And of course, answers will vary, but we've seen it there in the first sentence. And you see here, in your teacher's manual, if that's what you have the answers italicized. Of course, the students' handbooks are not going to have that. So if you're teaching in the classroom on a smart board, you want to make sure to request the student's manual for the smart board. And that's where it's up, these new chalkboards, I say new, these things have been out for years now, where it actually works as a projection board. So you can get the students' book for that. That way, you want to cause them to have to search for the answers. You don't want them to just read you back what's on the board. You want them to be able to turn, look, and like we said in the procedure, they need to be able to have a discussion about these things and interact with each other, and that way it will help it become stronger in their minds as they relate to what's taking place in their life. And that's the one thing that we found that helps. It's very effective when somebody can take something and it relates to them in their life. And when we go through these scenarios, just because someone doesn't tell you, I've experienced something like that before. A lot of times you can see it in the face of students. They'll be pondering and thinking, and you can see that there's a movie going on in their head of how they went through something similar to this, and it's replaying in their mind. And they're usually the first students that'll put their hands up to answer a question when you ask one, because they're relating something back to what they've been through before. And most people, I would think, can relate to what's going through. I know I can. So you ask them and get the feedback. Question number one, of course, that's found in the very first sentence of what we read, and the answers will vary, but might include his bad temper, poor attitude, and playing mean tricks on his peers. Question number two, if Harry were to bring this incident to the attention of his teacher, what do you think the teacher would believe? Would you think the teacher would, yeah, I'm convinced you did it on purpose? Now, this is somebody that didn't see it, wasn't there to witness it. They're just hearing something. And sadly, a lot of times, decisions are made based on someone's reputation. And that can be a very bad thing. When I say reputation, in schools, especially dealing with younger students, older students, you would hope they would grow out of it. It's not always the case. But when someone has a reputation of lying, and you go to ask someone, did you do that? No. Ah, come on, you need to tell the truth now. Did you do it? And you'll go through 45 minutes of did you do it? And I can tell you, as a teacher, I have sat with other teachers discussing, as a counselor, I've sat with people counseling for hours, trying to work out problems. And I remember one situation where I sit with another counselor for almost 3 hours trying to help an individual. And it was obvious that the person was lying. But after so much discussion, we figured, okay, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll try to work from this perspective, and we'll figure out a way for him to fix the situation. And then right when we got up to leave, he looked at us, he goes, I lied, I did it. It's like, we were here for 3 hours. You couldn't have said that like 3 hours ago. That would have sure helped a lot. So what did? We sat back down for almost another 2 hours. And something that could have been fixed in 15 minutes took almost 5 hours just to work through, just to get it fixed. And it was something so simple to fix. But the person was so worried, well, what will people think if they know I did it? Well, the reputation already caused us to think that the person did it to begin with, but we didn't want to accuse somebody of doing something like that. So, the best thing to do is, as we'll move forward, as a teacher, don't predetermine in your mind whether they did it or not just because of their reputation, especially if people are working to change their reputation. Give people the benefit of the doubt if they're trying and they're putting forth effort to work with them, and the benefit of the doubt is just ask them, have a conversation about it. Instead of, yep, had to do it, that's it, that's right. You don't want to be, when the bank gets robbed, somebody goes, I wonder where John's at right now. That's a really bad thing to see or to experience, especially when someone sees a picture of somebody that looks like you on TV for a crime, and then they start looking closer because they think, well, that could be him. And I've witnessed stuff like that too. I'm thankful I've never been accused of that, but I've witnessed stuff like that. But back to Harry here, because Harry's got an issue on his hands. So what would the teacher believe? It says answers will vary, but might include if the teacher knows Tom's bad reputation and is not aware of the change in his behavior, he may likely believe Harry, or she could believe Harry, because here's, you got Harry really worried that Tom's pushed him, Tom's hurt him, and Tom's done this and Tom done that. And if it's truly an accident, of course, if Harry thinks that it was done on purpose, he's not going to relent. He's going to I want to see this man punished for what he did. He did it on purpose. And it would be a really sad situation for someone that has worked so hard to change to be judged off of what he used to do, especially if he's working hard to change it. That can be detrimental to someone's character development. Question number 3. Harry certainly didn't believe that Tom was sincere. What could Tom have said or done to try to convince Harry otherwise? Now that's a question you have to ponder, because that can be a very endless situation to think about. But if I was in Tom's shoes, I would feel kind of hopeless. Because what are you going to do? How are you going to convince this individual that you didn't intend to do this? Well, it says Tom could briefly explain that he was now working with his counselors, then repeat that he was truly sorry. Now, think about this for an instance. Everybody should go to counseling. No matter who you are, if you experience things that bring you stress, if you experience things you're having problems dealing with, I can tell you right now, I know a lot of counselors and they all go to counseling. Everybody goes to counseling. And when I say counseling, it means meet with a trusted adult or an authority figure who you can discuss issues with. Someone who's knowledgeable about something that can help guide you, direct you, and lead you. It doesn't mean you've got to go sign up for psychology and lie on a sofa like you see on the movies for $500 an hour and, sit there and talk about your youth and everything else as they take notes. And that's not what I'm talking about. Just having discussions, open communication with trusted authority figures, someone that, some people even have people assigned to help them and guide them. Those people are set there to be friends. And as counselors, anyone that's ever done counseling or been a counselor, your goal is to see everyone succeed and do better in their life, have more peace. That is the ultimate goal. When someone comes to you, it doesn't matter how bad what they have to say is, you're supposed to be there to help them to listen to what they have to say, to not be judgmental of what they're saying, and then help them to find a solution to fix whatever the problem is. And of course, the reason I bring all that up, how easy do you think would it be for Tom? Because when people go to counseling, that's not something you want to put on the front page of the newspaper. That's personal issues. That's a personal matter. It doesn't mean you need to go around every time you did something and go, hey, I'm in counseling right now, okay, because I have issues. Because in reality, there's not one person in the United States or Mexico below us or Canada above us or anywhere else in this world that doesn't have issues. We all have some sort of issue. And anybody that goes, no, I don't have any issues, well, deal with pride, and then you'll be able to deal with your issues because you got them. We all do. And that's something, and I'm not saying that we all want to go out and, beat someone, or road rage or something that's vicious. We all have issues where we do something and we think back, like, just think about what Tom would be here doing. And I'm just trying to put this in the mind of teachers. This is not how much you would engage with the students like this, but you're wanting to paint this picture in the student's mind. How much do you think Tom regretted everything he had done when he's trying to be sincere and apologize and no one believes him? And he's truly trying to make a difference, but he's still not being believed. That could cause someone to give up and just, what do I care then? I'll just go back to who I was. After they've made such great advancement, after they've done so much, to just throw it all away. And I've seen people do that in my life before. People that were doing so well, on the right path. And it didn't mean that we don't all make mistakes and bad choices. And we have to pick ourselves up and redo it again. But imagine if you're in this situation. And the reason I say imagine if you're in this situation in Tom's shoes, because what if you end up being the person? What if you end up being Tom? And no one really believes you. They predetermine in their mind that, no, he's always been like that. Just think about how detrimental that would be for your outlook on your advancement of changing. You'll think, it's not even worth it. No one believes me anyway. Well, here in number 4, it says it's difficult when you're trying your best and no one notices. If you could give Tom some advice, let me try this over again. It is different when you are trying your best and no one notices. If you could give Tom some advice that would encourage him to continue improving his reputation, what would you tell him? And this is really something you want the class to brainstorm over. You really want them to, don't just think of Tom, think if that was you. What is something that could someone come up and tell you to change your mindset if you were in Tom's shoes? Because it's easy just to go up to somebody and pat them on the back. Don't worry, it'll get better. That's very different than when you're the one sitting there in the situation. When you're the one in the situation, well, what could someone to tell you to improve it? And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to even want to talk about it because the emotions are going. It's but I'm trying, no one's giving me an opportunity. It's not getting any better. Sometimes, Tom, he might need to go to counseling right then and try to deal with what's going on if the teacher would allow it. But notice here it says answers will vary, but might include continue trying and don't give up. That's one of the easiest things said and one of the hardest things that is done. Eventually, others will notice that he is controlling his temper and that his attitude has improved. You can always tell that his circumstances will eventually change. For example, tell him that his circumstances will eventually change. For example, he will move on to high school where he will meet new people who will value him based on his new moral behavior. And I know a situation where someone that I went to school with, and this was back in the late 80s, early 90s in high school, when they had developed such a horrible reputation. I had went to school with them through elementary and middle school. And where we lived, there was 2 main high schools. And we had districting, but nobody really went by districting. You just went to whichever school you wanted to. You would write down the address of the grocery store if you had to, just to be within the school district, just so you could go to the school that your friends went to. And it got so bad, his reputation he had built up through really the last part of elementary school into junior high. The school district themselves made him go to the school that was out of district. They said that was the only way they thought he would develop was if he got out of where he was at, because people were ready to kind of turn the leather whip on him, so to speak, and strap him down and give him a beating. And by relocating him, and he didn't want to do it, he ended up making new friends, and I seen him later. We didn't live in a huge city. It was a city of about, 45, 50,000 people at the time. And when I met him later, I almost didn't recognize him, the way he talked, the way he carried himself. He was a totally different person. And I never really seen him after that again because I went to the high school. It was on one side. He went to that one. But I'd known him for a long time. And he really changed. He really became a different person from what I've seen at that time. Never seen him since. But it helped him from what he said when I talked to him. It helped him a lot because nobody knew much about him. Even though we were all from the same city, everything was so separated, you could pretty much get a fresh start in a new school. And that's what he did. And people do that all the time in towns even. They'll move to a new town for a fresh start. And that's fairly common. These days people move to a new country for a fresh start. Looking back here on page 150 and thinking about all the things that could be done to help Tom, and you really want them to brainstorm. Brainstorm, think about it. Think about all the things they've learned so far, and think about what they've done in their own lives and how could you take, not that you have to tell somebody that it's your life you're talking about. You don't have to do that. But when you've had, as the author of the Peaceful Solution would call them, life lessons learned, when you've had those things, help other people out with what you've experienced and helping them make better choices or better decisions. Notice here it says, often at the very bottom of page 150, the first paragraph after the questions, often when someone has made poor choices and has developed a reputation for behaving a certain way, people automatically assume that that individual will continue to make those same choices. And the key words in this sentence that we just read is poor choices and development, or developed. Because one poor choice doesn't lead to this whole idea that a person is a bad person. Now, you can make a bad choice and they put it all over the news or put it all in the newspaper, and yeah, people will think about you for the one bad thing that they've seen. And that's on a global scale. Most people won't even recognize you. I say a global scale. It's more of a community scale, community level. But these things to where we're engaging with people on an everyday basis, whether it be your coworkers at work, you're going to school, even teachers have bullies and even teachers have reputations. I know whenever I would apply, because we got to select when I was in school what classes we wanted, I truly considered what teachers were going to be teaching that class before I selected that class. And I remember I selected biology one year because the science teacher I had that year, I could not stand. And I thought, the next teacher will be better because it's the baseball coach's wife. He's a great guy. He's a really fun guy. They say she is too. This will be a blast. Lo and behold, if I didn't sign up for it the next year and they flipped them, I had the same teacher again. And I set my mind, though, that I'm going to pass this class. I'm going to get through it. And next time I'm going to go ask the principal, will you be making any changes with teachers before I sign up for this class again? And I did do that, and the principal just laughed at me. He thought it was funny. But, it really made me understand, though, that even though I didn't care too much for the teacher because of their ideology, when I took science, sometimes you predetermine in your mind what you think is right. I didn't want to sit in a class that was based on evolutionary theory. That was my choice. I wanted it more based on, it was more of a physical science, which is what we were taking anyway. It wasn't an evolutionary class. It was more of a physical science, which has a small section in it. And that's what I was most interested in. And that's what I wanted to learn. And the next year, I think there were so many complaints that you could tell she had changed her teaching too. It actually became a really enjoyable class. I still didn't look forward to the class, but I enjoyed it, not as much as my other ones, but I still enjoyed it. But once again, this development, this growth, the ideology that people have. If we could go to our first slide, I want to pull your mind back because we need to also evaluate ourselves when we're talking about this. And this is from the character unit on page 71. And of course, we discussed with Mira Mira. This was us looking at ourselves. And the key word that we used here was habits. And it says, with so many negative influences in today's society, it can be challenging to obtain a positive character. This is where having someone who has a moral character to imitate really helps. So having a role model, that's what we were discussing, becoming a VIP. Imitating others is something we all do, whether we admit it or not. We all have someone we look up to and admire. As babies, you imitated your parents. and how to speak, when to smile, how to eat, and so forth. You developed habits that are now second nature to you. You know, and when dealing with people and when dealing with reputation, some people that have a bad reputation, what they're known for that is considered bad has become a habit in their life, and it's just second nature to them. That's just the way they respond because they've done it for so many years. It doesn't mean that it can't be changed. It doesn't mean that a person can't reestablish themselves in society. Going to the next slide, this was from page 155 of the character unit, once again focusing on a habit. It says, you have all been given the skills necessary for success, and this is encouraging students, telling them that the peaceful solution has given them the tools that they need. Positive moral character traits have been clearly defined for you. The need to guard yourself and others from negative influences, now that's very important. To guard yourself and others, because sometimes we can be the cause of the negative influence, which led to negative character, is crucial throughout the rest of your life. As you apply these moral principles to your everyday routine, you will find that they become a habit. Once again, all of these things we do on a daily basis. If you want to be honest, be honest. Others will notice a difference in your behavior, and you will be motivated to make positive choices that build moral character. You really can have an impact not only on your future, but also the future of those around you. Don't take these character tools for granted. Use them. They are the tools you will need for a successful life. And you never know when you're going to need these things. It wasn't that long ago, I was going through, they don't call it TSA, but that's what we would call it here in the United States. I was in another country that didn't speak English. And of course, you got to take your shoes off, take your belt off, take your laptop out, put it this, do that. Some countries are very specific, one item per bucket. So you'll have 8 bucket long to get all your stuff in. And I was getting my stuff out, and I could tell there were some people in front of me that were very wealthy. And as I was getting my stuff, I heard the man, he was trying to hurry his wife. I heard him say, "Vamos," which means come on. They were trying to get there. They'd got late for their flight. And so I went to move their buckets, and I noticed her wedding ring was in it, a gold necklace, all of her jewelry. She had put it in that one bucket because they told her to take it off. So I called out to them, and when they came back, they looked, and the lady like she was almost ready to pass out, because those things were valuable. You could tell by looking at them, they were very valuable. And I thought, I wonder how long it would have took for those things to disappear. Because I could tell they were valuable, and I don't deal with jewelry, but you could tell, just by the way those people were dressed, and even the shoes they had on, you could tell they had money. And you could tell that those things meant a lot to her when she came back and seen what she left. And they were very thankful, and then I'll probably never ever see those people again. But, I would hope that someone would do that to me if I was to leave valuables behind. Or if I would leave anything behind, that someone would let me know. But sadly, we live in a society, and especially the country I was in was a very poor country. And I think that would be a great find for a worker in the airport. Not saying that workers are dishonest in the airport, but when you're in a country, and how would you know whose stuff that belonged to? You find it there, they don't really keep track of who's taking their shoes off. You did that when you showed your ticket, then they push you all together. They don't know whose stuff belongs to who. Unless they want to, scan your bag and open it up and go through it, then you got to stand there and watch. But if you leave jewelry or something, they don't know it. And just watching the lady's reaction and how thankful she was, that's even if all you have is the feeling of knowing you did something that was right, that's worth more than anything. Because it's better than the stealing of, oh, they left it. Well, might as well take it. Somebody's going to anyway. Having the thought in your mind that you stole from somebody you didn't even know, that could even speak your language and is going to a different country, and most likely they will never cross your path ever again, that can be very detrimental. Even though you think you can get by with it, we never get by with those things. We never get by with those things. So we might as well do the right thing to begin with. Continuing on here with these poor choices that we were talking about and how they can become a habit, in the second sentence, it says, it is very important to give others an opportunity to change their behavior and their reputation. Very important here. Underline this, highlight it, circle it, put neon lights in your book if you need to. without judging their present actions based on their past mistakes. That's extremely important. Can you imagine if we lived in a system that would never forgive you for making a bad choice? You know, when you put in character education, you develop a system to where anyone that's made a bad choice can fix it. They can acknowledge what they've done. They can get counseling if they need to help them get through what they've done. And they can make a change, and society is supposed to be able to recognize that change that they've made. No matter how bad of a person they've been, people can change. Continuing on, it says, whereas it might be difficult to change a negative reputation, changing a positive reputation into one that is negative can be easily accomplished, oftentimes by making just one bad choice. You know, and I have things come to my mind to address, and I won't bring it up because here in our community, there's things that we would all recognize if I brought them up, but people out on the internet wouldn't recognize it. But imagine, and I'll just generalize this, because I'm definitely not trying to pinpoint anyone, but I sure have empathy for someone that experiences something like this. Imagine that you get caught making a bad choice through something that's been staged by police, and then when you're caught, they put your picture all over the internet, all over the newspapers. They send out alerts to everybody's phones, so all of your friends get to see it, all of the people you work with get to see it. Imagine what it would feel like if that was you that experienced that. You know, and when you say, well, I don't do stuff like that to ever go through that. Well, take whatever your most embarrassing, whatever your worst decision you ever made was, and imagine everyone getting an alert text, like an Amber Alert, letting you know this is what he did. Imagine how embarrassing and how difficult that would be to recover from. Some people don't recover, they just give up. And it's very detrimental to what they experienced in their life. You know, but these are things that we should never be part of. We should always give people the opportunity not to mess up, but to fix what they've messed up, to fix a situation that they've broken. We want that opportunity, and we should give others the same opportunity. And that's what allows someone the ability to know that their reputation can be fixed. It's not set in stone. It can be shaped and molded. It can be, you know, almost like when you refinish wood. You got to get all the nasty, ugly stuff off and get it back down to where you started and then start building again. And that helps a lot. That gives people just knowing that you have the opportunity to do it and you're in an environment where you will be allowed to do it. That means a lot to someone that's going through something like that. And if we haven't been through it, we will all go through it eventually. We all experience these things. I know most people sitting in this room today understand what I'm talking about with, you know, making bad choices and having to kind of find a way to answer for them and to make them better. Even if you got to go talk to a counselor every week and acknowledge what you messed up on every week, not a bad thing to practice. It's not a bad thing at all because it helps you to become a better person. Going on here to page 151, and once again, all of these are student activities that we're doing together in the classroom, but as teachers, it's very important to relate these back to the students. And it says here, read the scenario and answer the questions that follow. Monique was an A student. She was well liked in her school. She was honest and respected by both her teachers and peers. However, when Monique's parents moved, she had to attend a different school. Monique was now in a new environment and was finding it hard to fit in and make new friends. After a month at her new school, Monique met some girls who seemed nice. They invited her to the mall. Monique was glad she was finally making new friends. While at the mall, Cheryl dared Monique to steal a necklace from one of the department stores. At first, Monique refused. But Cheryl and the other girls insisted that they did it all of the time and that they had never gotten caught. Besides, if they were going to be friends, Monique would have to prove herself. We call that hazing today. Monique gave in, and for the first time, she deliberately took something that did not belong to her. So one thing to notice in this before we continue, make sure as a teacher you're setting everything in your mind with influences. You're going to need to discuss those, conformity, peer pressure. All of these things need to be remembered because all of those things have just taken place right here. Especially when you have to do this to be one of us, that ties in conformity, the influence, the negative peer pressure, all of those things tying into one. And we've covered those all in detail. So all of these things are making up this story. Well, as she's leaving the store with the stolen necklace, a plainclothed security guard stopped her. Her new friends deserted her. Once again, her new friends, that should recall back what it means to be a friend in the 4th chapter of the acceptance unit. That's something else to remind them of. Because honestly, would a friend tell you to steal something? Of course not. So all of these things, the wheels should be turning in their minds. And as a teacher, it's your job to make sure those wheels are turning in their minds. Well, her new friends deserted her, and she faced the consequences of her choice alone. The next day at school, the news she had been caught shoplifting spread like wildfire. And who do you think spread that news? Who do you think even knew about it? All of the friends that deserted her. I very seriously doubt stealing a necklace at the department store made the 6 o'clock news or the 5:30 news. Most likely they heard it from the people that were there. Monique had now earned a reputation for being a thief. And that is one of the worst things that you can do, especially if you've been honest your whole life and then you're coerced, pressured to do something that you know is wrong and you give in just to fit in and you do it and then you get caught. That is one of the worst feelings you could ever experience. Notice the very first question here says, do you think Monique's new reputation will affect her ability to make positive friends? And you want to have this interaction because it's not her reputation she had at the other school. It's what she's developed now because they don't really know her from before. They only know her from what she's done now. And it's very doubtful that the old school is going to show up to give a testimonial on her behalf about why she's such a great person. We're kind of known by what we do with the people we keep. But notice here, one of the answers could be yes, because people will assume that she is a thief. And imagine when something gets taken in a classroom, something gets missing in a locker, you're in a gym and people's got their book bags, something disappears. And this is the sad part. Have you ever experienced this yourself? I have. I know many times. You're thankful your family can't come up here and give testimonials. I've watched my wallet, my keys, I've watched so many things just disappear from where I put them. I know I put them there. It might have been 3 days ago, and I put them 3 other places since, but I knew at one time in my life I had put them there, and they're not there. And I remember one time, I've lost my wallet a couple times. And I found the worst thing that I could ever do is wear a hoodie with front pockets and put my wallet in it. Because when I take my hoodie off, after it, in Texas, you go from heat to cold, and it doesn't take much. And in the wintertime, it can be like spring days. So you can actually wear a hoodie, because I don't like jackets at all. And I put my wallet in the front, and I took it off and laid it down. The day was beautiful when I left work, and I didn't need a hoodie for a couple more weeks. And that's how long it took me to find my wallet. I didn't find my wallet till the time come to where, man, where's my hoodie at? I couldn't even find my hoodie. When I found my hoodie, I found my wallet. But you wouldn't believe the people I thought had taken it in between that time. I had some boys, what did you do with my wallet? Why did you even touch my wallet? And it's great that they've never had the habit of doing that, so it was easier to believe them when I didn't touch it, because they've never done it. But now if they had have touched my wallet and had the habit of going through my wallet, that would have been a very bad scene, as the Peaceful Solution says. And of course, when I found my wallet, I would have probably already convinced myself, you guys snuck this wallet in my hoodie, didn't you? I would have created every situation that had took the blame from me. I'm sure I would have. But those are things that we tend to do, and I know I left it there. I know I did. And then when somebody get your car keys out of the freezer, I don't know how that took place. It becomes, well, if you hadn't started bothering me when I was busy doing this, I wouldn't have done that. And I can tell you, it's very easy to do. I had a set of AirPods, and I only say this because I have a reputation that when I start talking, I lose track of things. And when I say things are in my hand, I was at work, a friend called, I answered the phone, I took out my AirPods, I stuck them in, I walked up to the front of my store to lock the door, I threw some trash away, got everything I needed, I was still on the phone, I got in my vehicle to leave, and I'm like, where did my AirPod case go? And I know it ended up in the dumpster somewhere because it was the trash that was in my hand. I just threw everything in the trash, and it was in a trash can that I wasn't willing to go dig through at the time because what was in the trash can. So I figured if it's in there, it's going to stay in there. That's all I can say. I'll just have to learn. But, when these things take place, we have to examine ourselves first, because the last thing you want is a reputation of somebody. When you lose your phone, everybody around them had to steal it. Because then people they don't want to be around someone like that. They don't want anything to do with somebody like that. So think of Monique here and what she could go through in the same situation. And here's the number 2 question we have is, what consequences could Monique face for her choice to shoplift? Of course, the answers will vary, but she might have to pay a fine or do community service. Being a first offense, being a young person. Usually they try to put something in your mind, and there's nothing more embarrassing than doing community service when everybody's driving by and you're picking trash off the side of the road. Because they do that so everybody can see what you're doing, and they'll put you on a busy road to do it, and you tend to think that, well, the trash is not that bad until you have to pick up all the stuff that people throw out the window. And if you've never picked up trash in Texas, when we were teaching a group of young men, it was actually in Abilene, Peace of Solution years ago, I had to ask, because they were doing community service, and I said, what is the grossest thing you guys ever pick up? And I would have never thought of it, but being in Texas, one of the young men said these plastic Coke bottles where they spit tobacco juice in them. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty gross, but you just pick it up with your little tongs and throw it away? Oh, no. When it's 100-something degrees, you don't know if it's going to blow when you go to pick it up or not, because it's been sitting out there for a long time. The plastic's gotten wet, and sometimes when you go to pick it up, you can hear it go psh, and it's everywhere. And it's like, oh. They said that alone makes you not want to break the law again. So, but these are things I always ask because I'm always interested in knowing. That helps me not to do things to get community service and other things. Number 3 here. Because Monique made the choice to be dishonest, others might find it very difficult to trust her again. What advice could you give Monique to help her regain the trust that she has lost? And once again, that's something, putting yourself into Monique's shoes. There's going to be students in your classroom that have experienced the same thing that you're talking about. These are not things that's only going to relate to the paper you're reading. This is going to relate to the people that are in your classroom also. And of course, the answers will vary, but the very first thing is what it always takes, over time. It always takes time. Anytime we break something, that we do something that's inappropriate, it always takes time to fix it. A lot of people, well, I said I'm sorry. Well, sorry doesn't always fix every situation immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and sometimes, restitution's involved. With her taking the necklace, I'm sure she had to return the necklace. And then you have fines and other things that are implemented into this situation. Sometimes all of those things have to be done. And if you just imagine if you borrowed someone's lawnmower and you broke it and you say, I'm sorry, do you really think the person, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. When you finally finish paying to fix the lawnmower, that's when he'll go, I forgive you. And that's really when the true forgiveness takes place, because until you pay for it, all he remembers is you broke his lawnmower every time you go out to use it. So think about this, because it takes work. It's more than just words. It takes work to get these things to be repaired. So turning over here to page 152 and building out the scenarios we've talked about and what it all boils down to. As you can see, changing your reputation can be both difficult and easy. It all depends upon the choices you make. The best thing to do is always choose to treat yourself, others, and their property in a respectful manner. When it comes to building a respectful reputation, it is better not to make negative choices than to correct them. So it's better not to break something than to have to repair it. Here's straight talk at the very bottom of the page. If you act impulsively and choose to engage in any action that can bring harm to yourself and others, you are not practicing self-control. And remember, self-control is the foundation of all positive moral character. Nor are you building a respectful reputation. It's very hard to build on something that's not solidified. It's not stable. It's not, kind of firmed up with what needs to be done to support the weight you're going to put on it. And situations, choices, life in itself brings a lot of stress and a lot of weight. And your mind, your body, your being in itself, within yourself, can only deal with what you've prepared yourself for. If you've prepared your mind, set your mind in advance to deal with situations, you're much better able off to do it. And you're better able off to deal with other people that have made bad choices, done things that they shouldn't have done. You shouldn't have to. There's some people in life, it's their job to pretty much hear bad things people do. And if you do that job long enough, it's almost like there's nothing left someone can tell you that you haven't heard already. You've already heard as much as you could possibly imagine. And I had a gentleman tell me one time, he goes, I'm going to tell you something and I need help. And this gentleman lives out of the country, so no one would ever know who this was. And he told me I could use his story before. I'm going to tell you something you've never heard, and I did it, and I'm sorry I did it. And he told me and another counselor, and no, we've heard that probably 15 or 20 times before. And he was shocked. I said, and some of the people we've heard it from have become really great people. Some of the people we heard it from, we've never seen again. But everybody had the same opportunities you're going to have right now. And that person, to this day, I still get a message from every day. And they live on the other side of the earth. And but that person tries really hard to do what's right. And they see where they broke things, and they try very hard to fix them. And that's all society can ask from a person. You can't ask any more than that if someone does something that's wrong, that they strive to fix what they broke. And there's nothing more you can do. You can't look at them and go, well, what you did, you can't bring back what you took, so therefore you can't fix it. No, they could always do it again. And if they manage to create their character to a person that would never turn that way again, then they became a benefit to society. We always want to look at the failure of the person, but we don't look at the system or the life of the individuals that were in that person's life that failed them. When a person makes bad choices and they fail, we look and we give them a reputation, but we tend not to think about, well, what was the reputation of all of the people that were supposed to train them? Did the parents do the role of their parents? Did they do the job they were supposed to do? Did the teachers? Did people get involved in their life? That's not always the situation. And it's a very detrimental thing when we have this ideology that everybody had the ideal upbringing, that everybody got everything they needed. And if you ever believe that, you're deceiving yourself. You haven't got out to meet enough people in life. You haven't, you don't even have to travel to find that out. Just watch the 6 o'clock news or the 5:30 news wherever you live. Just watch that. You don't have to even leave your community. You'll find that within your own community. Abilene's full of things they're not proud of, I would say, here in Abilene, Texas, but there's things that just operate as a city. And your city can develop a bad reputation because of the citizens that are in the city. There's a lot of cities that have a bad reputation, and we've been to them before. The city of Chicago. I said that was the one with the worst reputation. Is the city of Chicago and the people that live in it all bad? Absolutely not. I've been to Chicago, never had anyone pull a knife or a gun on me. But we did listen when people said, don't go past that block, go this way and go back that way. You don't go no further than this. We paid attention to that, and we didn't do it. And I've been to other countries that people will try to convince you. If you go over there, they're going to cut your head off. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Well, if you put yourself in the situation, I'm sure it would, because I read it too on the news. But I also know of millions of people that go there and come back every day that nothing takes place with. Sometimes you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Absolutely. But you can also try to keep your nose out of doing what's wrong and protect yourself a lot better too. I've always said, if someone's going to hurt you with a knife, don't go looking for the man with the knife. Try to avoid him. It doesn't make sense to go looking for trouble. So keep that in mind, because if you have a reputation of somebody that likes excitement, well, it'll always be around the corner for you. Well, let's read this last scenario here, and then it'll get into some cause and effect. But we'll get through this scenario, and that'll give William a place to pick up with some rehearsal and be able to get into more detail with some of these things. And here on page 153, it says, the choices you make can affect you for the rest of your life. Now, I want you to look at this slide first, because this is one of the things we go through in life that we all experience, and we all do, whether we like to admit it or not. It's called jealousy. And it says, people experience the emotion of jealousy for many reasons. But one thing is certain, jealousy that is left uncontrolled can be a dangerous emotion. People's reputations have been damaged. Some have been hurt and others murdered because of jealousy. So when you think about jealousy and what it is, and that's from the self-control unit on page 33 for your notes, you can literally destroy someone by starting rumors, by saying things that aren't true, all because there's something there that you want that you didn't have that they got, or some advantage you feel they're getting you're not getting. Anything that causes you to be envious of another person to the point where you start degrading them, saying things negative about them, start rumors about them. Those things are very detrimental, and it's something society can't tolerate if we're going to develop a positive character. And I want to go into the next slide before we get into the scenario here, and this will be the last slide for tonight. It's from the character unit on page 147. And it says, you now know that your values and influences are the foundation of your character. And that goes along with the self-control that's built up that we read on page 4 of the self-control unit. What you deem as important and what you allow yourself to be influenced by will determine what choices you make. And of course, we know that to be self-control when you're controlling those things. The fact is, when you maintain a positive character, you will avoid making choices that will leave you with regrets. A negative character and poor choices lead to serious consequences that can have lifelong effects. And remember, once again, it's the choices we make. So don't drop your guard, not even for a moment. Visualize that your positive character is like a shield, protecting you from the choices that could seriously hinder you from a bright and successful future. So once again, it's those choices that actually affect our reputation and our character. And with that in mind, looking here to page 153, it's called The High Price of Popularity. It starts off by saying it was hard for 16-year-old Nicole Cicerelli to look at her Grosse Pointe North High School yearbook without crying. It brings back a host of horrible feelings. She remembers the pain of packing up her clothes last summer and moving away from Grosse Pointe, Michigan. It was the town that she had lived in since she was 6, and the same town that turned against her after she admitted to having sex with seniors. Information that helped put her school's coolest guy in jail. If I had left by my own choice, maybe I wouldn't have been as sad, but the fact that I left because everyone hated me was hard, says Nicole. I felt so empty inside, like I lost everything. Besides losing her friends, she realized she had lost a lot of self-respect. But at the time, Nicole saw her choice as a ticket to popularity, and she thought it was worth it. Nicole wasn't alone. In her thinking, Jordan B., a 17-year-old senior at high school about 20 minutes from Grosse Pointe, says the freshman girl at school worships senior guys. The younger girls will go a lot further sexually with the older guys, says Jordan. Putting out for popularity isn't restricted to Grosse Pointe. It happens all around, sometimes with pretty disastrous results. I had sex with a guy just so I could be popular at school, and I ended up with a sexually transmitted disease, says Julie J., 13, of Missouri. While they were aware that what they were doing wasn't the wisest choice, girls may place themselves in situations where they can be victimized, and this is risky behavior, says Lynn Ponton, MD, a professor of psychiatry at the University of California of San Francisco. So when you think about these things that people do for popularity, they sacrifice themselves, their reputation, even the morality of making the right choice. And the sad part about situations in life, and we see it statistically going up right now, not just in the state of Texas, but here in the United States, it's really big news. And it's the cause of syphilis, which is an STD that will kill you. You know, right now, and I would encourage students to research this, to show students, right now, not in the state of Texas alone, but in the United States, they're actually saying that there's such a huge penicillin shortage, which is what they inject you with to try to get rid of it, that if you have it and you know you have it, you still got to wait in line to get the penicillin because there's a shortage. But they say most people never know they have it until it shows up as heart disease or some other organ, or your brain itself is suffering horribly from this disease that you got, that you didn't even know that you got. But you did know what you did, what the act that you committed that you probably shouldn't have done, and you know that. It was not a probably shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have done it. But you don't know the results or the residual effects, and that's what William will get into the next class with cause and effects. You don't know what that brings the boiling point to until the pot's boiling over, the flames are flying up everywhere, and you go to turn off the knob to turn down the heat or the gas, and someone took the knob and there's no button to turn down anymore, no knob to turn down. So think about that. But once again, through this class tonight, we're going to stop here on page 154. That will allow William to pick up there on page 154, and he'll still be working towards getting into procedure 5. He'll still be in procedure 4, but building off of this reputation and how let's give everybody an opportunity to improve it. So our next class is going to be on August the 6th. It'll be this coming Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Thank you once again for joining us.